It's February 2014. In a converted warehouse in Mountain View, California, a 37-year-old man named Jan Koum drives to a low white building he knows well. He used to come here as a teenager with his mother to stand in line for food stamps. This is where the family collected government assistance after they arrived in America with almost nothing. Today, Koum parks outside that same building, walks up to the door and signs a piece of paper against it. The paper sells his company to Facebook for $19 billion. Not 19 million. 19 billion, the largest sum ever paid for a venture-backed startup, more than Ford was worth that year. The company he just sold has fewer than 60 employees. It runs no advertising. It has no marketing department. Most Americans had barely heard of it. And yet, on every continent, 500 million people open it every single day to talk to the people they love. The app is called WhatsApp. To understand how a boy who once lived on food stamps ended up signing a $19 billion deal on the door of a welfare office, you have to go back to a village outside Kyiv where a phone was something you were afraid to use. Jan Koum was born in 1976 in Fastiv, a small town outside Kyiv in what was then Soviet Ukraine. The house he grew up in had no hot water. In winter, the family heated it themselves. His mother was a housewife, his father a construction manager who built hospitals and schools. They were not poor by the standards of their neighbors, but they lived under something heavier than poverty. They lived under watch. The telephone in a Soviet home was not a private thing. Everyone assumed the line could be tapped, because it often was. Koum's mother rarely used it for anything that mattered. You learned, young, that words spoken at a distance might be heard by people you could not see. School was the same. Children were taught what to say and what never to say. This is the detail that explains everything that comes later. Long before Koum wrote a line of code, he understood in his bones what it felt like to have no privacy. To assume someone was always listening. In the late 1980s, as the Soviet Union began to crack, his family saw an opening. Anti-Semitism was rising, and the political climate was turning dangerous. In 1992, when Jan was 16, he and his mother packed what they could carry and left for America. His father stayed behind, intending to follow. He never made it. Koum and his mother landed in Mountain View, California, in the heart of what would become Silicon Valley. Though for them, at first, it was just somewhere to survive. A social support program helped them get a small 2-bedroom apartment. His mother took work as a babysitter. Jan swept the floor of a grocery store. And for a while, the family lived on food stamps, collecting them from a government office that years later would sit a short drive from the company he built. His mother had brought pens and a stack of notebooks from Ukraine to save the cost of buying school supplies in America. Then she was diagnosed with cancer, and they lived on her disability payments. His father, back in Ukraine, died in 1997, never having joined them. Through all of it, Jan found one thing that was entirely his own. At 18, he became fascinated by computer networking. He bought used manuals from a second-hand bookshop, taught himself how systems talk to each other, and returned the books when he was done so he could get part of his money back. He enrolled at San Jose State University and took a job at the accounting firm Ernst & Young as a security tester. If you're enjoying this, take a second to subscribe. We tell the real stories behind the world's greatest builds. Because it was that job that put him in a room with the person who would change his life. In 1997, while testing security systems for Ernst & Young, Koum was sent to audit the advertising systems of a fast-growing internet company called Yahoo. The engineer assigned to work with him was a tall, easygoing Stanford graduate named Brian Acton. The two could not have been more different. Acton was American-born, relaxed, established. Koum was an intense, blunt immigrant who said exactly what he thought and hated small talk. But they recognized something in each other, a shared seriousness about how systems should actually work. 6 months later, Yahoo offered Koum a job as an infrastructure engineer, and he took it. He dropped out of San Jose State to do it. For the next 9 years, Koum and Acton worked side by side, keeping Yahoo's servers running through the dot-com boom and the crash that followed. It was grinding, unglamorous work, the plumbing of the early internet. Koum was good at it, but he was never happy at Yahoo. He disliked the advertising business at the core of the company. He found the culture exhausting. And by 2007, both men were burned out. So they did something a little reckless. They both quit, with no plan. They traveled around South America. They played ultimate frisbee. And then, refreshed and restless, they started looking for what came next. By 2009, the money from their Yahoo Years was running thin, and the obvious move was to get back into the industry. The hottest companies in the valley were hiring, so they applied. Brian Acton interviewed at Twitter. He didn't get an offer. Then he applied to Facebook, the company everyone wanted to work for. Facebook turned him down too. He took the rejections with a shrug and posted about them online in 2 short messages that would later become famous. "Facebook turned me down," he wrote. "It was a great opportunity to connect with some fantastic people. Looking forward to life's next adventure." A few months earlier, after the Twitter rejection, got denied by Twitter HQ. That's okay. Would have been a long commute. Com too had been passed over by Facebook. Here is the part that's easy to miss. The same company that rejected both founders would, 5 years later, pay $19 billion to buy what they built instead. At the time, though, there was nothing triumphant about it. 2 engineers in their 30s, savings draining, turned away by the companies they admired. But rejection has a strange way of clearing a path. With no job to take, they had nothing to lose by building something of their own. And Com already had the beginnings of an idea. In January 2009, Com bought an iPhone. Apple's App Store was only 6 months old, and to Com it looked like the start of an entirely new industry. One where a small team could reach the whole world without a phone carrier's permission. The idea that grabbed him was simple, almost mundane. He imagined an app that sat next to the names in your phone's contact list and showed a little status beside each one. Busy, at the gym, low battery, can't talk. A way to broadcast, at a glance, whether you were reachable. He liked the sound of the phrase, "What's up?" and he played with the spelling until it became a name with a pun baked in. WhatsApp. He registered the company on his own birthday, in February 2009. The first version was rough. It crashed constantly. It drained batteries. Almost nobody used it. And the few who tried it didn't come back. Com was discouraged enough that he seriously considered abandoning the whole thing and looking for a real job again. The status update idea, it turned out, was not something people actually wanted. What he had built was a solution to a problem no one really had. But sometimes the thing you build by accident matters more than the thing you set out to make. By the spring of 2009, Com was close to giving up. The app didn't work the way he'd hoped, the downloads were flat, and his savings were shrinking. He met Brian Acton at a pizza place and told him plainly that he thought it was over. He was going to start applying for jobs again. Acton listened and then said something Com never forgot. He told him he'd be an idiot to quit now. "Give it a few more months," Acton said. "See what happens." It was a small thing, a friend refusing to let another friend give up at the worst possible moment. But it bought WhatsApp the only thing it needed, a little more time. And in that exact window, something happened that Com had no control over at all. Apple was about to release a feature that would quietly transform the broken little status app into something nobody had planned. Com hadn't asked for it. He hadn't designed around it. But it was coming, and when it arrived, the whole point of WhatsApp would change overnight. The thing that saved the company wasn't a brilliant decision. It was a friend's stubbornness and a piece of timing Com stumbled into. In June 2009, Apple launched push notifications. Now an app could ping your phone even when it was closed. Com wired it into WhatsApp so that when someone changed their status, everyone in their contacts got a little alert. And then he watched something he never expected. People started changing their statuses constantly, not to say whether they were busy, but to talk to each other. "On my way." Ha, very funny. "Pick up milk." They were using the status field as a messaging system, pinging back and forth in real time. Com stared at it and realized the truth. He hadn't built a status app at all. He had accidentally built an instant messenger, one that worked across phones, used your existing contact list, needed no username, no PIN, no friend request, just a phone number. Version 2 of WhatsApp shipped that summer. Rebuilt as a pure messaging app, the growth was immediate and almost frightening. Within months, it had 250,000 users. Acton brought in 5 former Yahoo friends as the first investors, raising $250,000 and formally joined as a co-founder. The broken status app was dead. In its place was the thing the whole world had been waiting for and didn't know it. Most apps in 2009 made money one way: advertising. Show ads, collect data, sell attention. It was the model that ran Yahoo, the model that ran Facebook, the model that ran almost everything. Com refused it. Taped to his desk was a note, written by Acton, that read like a manifesto. No ads, no games, no gimmicks. It stayed there for years, a reminder of what they would not become. The reasoning ran deeper than taste. Kyiv had grown up in a place where being watched was a fact of daily life, where the phone line was assumed to be listening. He had spent 9 years inside an advertising company and disliked everything about it. To him, advertising meant surveillance, building a business by harvesting what people said and who they talked to. He wanted the opposite. So instead of ads, WhatsApp charged $1 a year, no banners, no tracking, no selling of contact lists. The app collected almost nothing about its users. It didn't even store messages on its servers once they were delivered. "Respect for your privacy is coded into our DNA," Kyiv would later write. It was an unfashionable, almost stubborn position in the valley. But it was also, it turned out, exactly what hundreds of millions of people quietly wanted: to talk without being mined. What happened next is one of the strangest growth stories in software. WhatsApp spread across platforms, first the iPhone, then BlackBerry, then Android, then the cheap Nokia phones that most of the world actually used. It needed no advertising because every new user invited their friends just by messaging them. And it spread fastest in the places that needed it most. In 2009, sending a text message across borders could cost a fortune. WhatsApp sent messages over the internet for free. For a worker in Mumbai texting family, for a teenager in Madrid, for a trader in Lagos, it didn't just save money, it replaced the phone company. And here is the part that's almost hard to believe. The company stayed tiny. While its user count climbed into the hundreds of millions, WhatsApp employed only around 50 people. Roughly a dozen of them were engineers. At one point, the math worked out to a single engineer for every 14 million users, a ratio with no real precedent in the industry. They achieved it through obsession with reliability. Kyiv had one rule above all others: the app must always work. No flashy features, no redesigns for the sake of it. Just a service so dependable that people trusted it with the most ordinary and important conversations of their lives. Simplicity was the strategy. By 2012, WhatsApp had quietly become the way much of the planet communicated. In India, it was simply how you talked to people. In Brazil, in Spain, in Indonesia, in South Africa, it was the default, more universal than any single phone carrier. While Americans were still texting through their network providers, the rest of the world had already moved on. The numbers became staggering. WhatsApp passed 1 billion messages a day, then 10 billion, then far beyond. On a single New Year's Eve, users sent so many messages that the figure ran into the tens of billions in a day. For the global telecom industry, this was an extinction event. International SMS had been a cash machine for the carriers, charging by the message, by the border crossed. WhatsApp made all of it free and made it better. A company of 50 people, with a note on the wall that said no ads and no gimmicks, was dismantling one of the most profitable products the phone companies had. And it was doing it without spending a cent on marketing. The kid who had once swept a grocery store floor, who had collected food stamps a few miles away, now ran a piece of software that more people relied on than almost any other on Earth. The world had voted message by message. One person was watching WhatsApp's rise more closely than anyone: Mark Zuckerberg. Facebook had built an empire on connecting people, and messaging was the heart of how people actually connected. Zuckerberg could see that WhatsApp wasn't just another app. It was on a path to owning the conversation layer of the entire world, especially everywhere Facebook wanted to grow. So he did what he had done before with Instagram. Rather than compete, he set out to buy. In the spring of 2012, Zuckerberg invited Kyiv to dinner at his home. Over the next year and a half, the two met repeatedly. Quiet dinners, long walks. Zuckerberg courted him patiently, learning what Kyiv cared about. And what Kyiv cared about was not mainly money. He cared about the principles taped to his desk. So when the talks turned serious, Kyiv set conditions that were almost unheard of. WhatsApp would keep running independently. There would be no advertising. The data would not be folded into Facebook's machine. And Kyiv himself would get a seat on Facebook's board of directors. Zuckerberg agreed to all of it, in writing. For a man who had been rejected by Facebook for a job 5 years earlier, it was a remarkable reversal. The only question left was the price, and the price would shock the entire industry. On the 19th of February 2014, Facebook announced it was buying WhatsApp for $19 billion, in cash and stock. It was the largest acquisition of a venture-backed company in history. To put it in scale, Facebook was paying more for a 55-person messaging app than it had paid for everything else it had ever bought combined. Roughly $40 million per employee, for an app that had spent nothing on marketing and charged $1 a year. The world reacted with disbelief. Analysts argued it was insane, but Zuckerberg had simply done the math on a different axis. WhatsApp wasn't worth $19 billion for its revenue. It was worth it for its 500 million users, growing by 1 million a day, sitting astride the messaging future. And then there was the detail almost too perfect to be true. When the deal closed, Jan Koum went to sign the final paperwork. He chose to sign it on the door of the old North County Social Services building in Mountain View, the welfare office where, as a new immigrant, he and his mother had once lined up for food stamps. A boy who'd had nothing put his signature on a $19 billion deal, against the very door where he'd once stood in line for food. The promises did not hold. In 2016, 2 years after the deal, WhatsApp updated its terms to begin sharing user data, phone numbers and analytics, with Facebook. It was exactly the line Koum had drawn, and it was being crossed. European regulators later fined Facebook over €100 million for misleading them about whether such linking was even possible. Behind the scenes, the pressure grew. Facebook wanted ads inside WhatsApp. It wanted to weaken the encryption enough to let businesses and the company itself see more. To the founders, this was the betrayal of everything the app stood for. Brian Acton left first, in 2017. In doing so, he walked away from roughly $850 million in stock that hadn't yet vested. He poured $60 million of his own money into a rival, the non-profit encrypted messenger Signal, built to do what WhatsApp had originally promised. A year later, during the Cambridge Analytica scandal, Acton posted 3 words to his followers: "It is time. Delete Facebook." Jan Koum left in 2018, citing disputes over privacy and data. He too forfeited unvested stock worth nearly $1 billion and gave up his seat on the board. The 2 men who had built the world's most private messenger had sold it, and then refused to stay and watch it become the thing they had escaped. Today, more than 2 billion people use WhatsApp. It remains, for much of the planet, the simplest way to reach the people you love. Free, fast, and end-to-end encrypted. The privacy protection Koum and Acton fought to put in before they left. The founders are gone, but the thing they refused to compromise on outlived them in the code. Step back and the shape of it is almost hard to believe. A boy from a town outside Kyiv, where the telephone was something to fear. An immigrant who lived on food stamps and swept a grocery store floor. An engineer rejected by the very company that would one day pay $19 billion to buy what he built instead. He never ran a single advertisement. He never chased a trend. He held on to one stubborn idea, that people deserve to talk without being watched. And he built it so well that 2 billion people trusted it with their lives. He didn't disrupt messaging. He gave the world a way to talk and ask for almost nothing in return. He built it from nothing. If this is the kind of story you want more of, subscribe. There's another build coming.